All right, folks, this is Mark Lee. I am starting a new show here on IBM TV, and I'm very much looking forward to our conversations here. I'm actually hoping that we're going to have a couple of guests come by that are friends of mine, and I've already sent information to Ankit and the crew, so I'm hoping that they will be joining us very shortly, but we'll find out if that goes on as planned. But definitely, we're going to have some interesting conversations here. I've been involved in media for a number of years. I've actually worked in a lot of different fields. I have been a newspaper reporter. I did that in everything from high school, and I'm in my late 50s now, all the way up until like more recent years and things of that nature. So I've definitely got some print media experience. I've also worked in radio for a number of years. My parents started a radio station when I was a teenager. That being said, I got a lot of radio experience. I worked with their radio station for about 10 or 12 years. I also worked, and that was from like about 1976, thereabouts, to about 1986 or 87. This station was on for about 11 or 12 years. So had that experience. And then I also worked on a station in Marquette, that's Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I did radio there. And I've also was one of the people involved with the founding of WNCU, a station here in Durham, North Carolina. And for a number of years, I've been involved at WCOM. So as you can see, a lot of experience in the radio field. So that is a great thing that I am definitely going to bring to this whole conversation. I've also done occasional TV appearances. My mom was on the Black Issues Forum as a host, and I've made a couple of appearances on that show, not with her, but with other people that were doing that show. We were talking about the film festival that Haytide does. So I've done that a couple of times in terms of TV appearances, but not have done a lot of TV appearances. Also appeared once or twice to give people information about the Bull Durham Blues Festival. So I've made a couple of appearances on those kind of TV stations. And I have friends who are movie makers. Some have given me roles in their movies. Some of us have been watching the commercials that are out there now, some of them that are even pandemic related. And we know there's the new What's Up commercial. It goes, What's up? And that commercial led to a young lady friend of mine doing kind of a takeoff of that. And that was done when those original What's Up commercials were done. So I did that for a number of, I worked with her as well as other filmmakers. We actually shot that film in the Durham area, downtown Durham. We were using my apartment. I was playing a nosy neighbor. And we were also using the apartment of a friend of mine who lived across the street, as I recall. But I did that, also played a extra in a commercial that my friend Dilcy Davis did that was geared toward, I believe, the Olympics. And that was done over at Duke Hospital. So definitely got to play somebody that is very important to us these days, that being the essential worker. So I got to play one in the background extra. Don't think I had a speaking part at all. But I've done a couple of other bit parts. My friend Kirk did some filming, and he had me play some bit parts in that as well. So as you can see, I've got some wide kinds of experiences in the field of activism. In addition to that, I've also, that's the field of media, but I've also got some activism things as well that I have been involved with. So I've been involved with everything from the Solidarity Center, which is based in Durham. Jillian Johnson, who is our mayor pro tem here in Durham, was one of the people involved with that, and she got me on that board. I was also involved with Occupy Durham and a number of other things to deal with the activism community. We can even go back to my childhood with that as well, since I was involved with the Malcolm X University that was founded in the late 60s here in the Durham area, or Malcolm X School, it might have been called. But definitely was involved with that as a lad. I think I was maybe about 7 or 8 at that time. And I've always considered myself very much of an activist. There are some books that I'm still fans of to this day that are about activism. So like I'm a fan of Russell Means' book and his autobiography. Definitely a fan of Malcolm X and his autobiography. Of course, Martin Luther King. There's a book called Ecotage. Many people do not know this, but the environmental justice movement was kind of started in the Durham, North Carolina area. So I was definitely involved with that, and was definitely trying to find out more and more about how that was going to go. So that was a very exciting time for me. So I was looking forward to telling y'all more about that during the course of our show. So hope that many of you will find out these things and find out some of these to be of interest to you. I'm hoping we're going to talk about some of these books that have influenced me in times, because like I said, we've got a number of books that definitely influenced what I thought about different things. One of my favorites, and I think I might have just mentioned it, environmental books, was Ecotage. Ecotage is a very interesting book about the fox, who was an environmental, some people would call him an environmental terrorist. I consider him more like an environmental freedom fighter, but he would go into areas that were doing some heavy polluting and would basically get back at corporate America. He might, like if they were polluting and killing fish, he might go get the fish that had been killed, find those fish, the dead fish that had been killed by pollution, sneak into the CEO's headquarters and dump the fish right there on their desk. So that's just one of his tactics that I remember from that particular book. And there was a number of other ones he has since passed on, but definitely was somebody that had some very interesting kind of views and ways of handling things. So that was very interesting when I read that book at a much younger age. And of course, you can't go wrong when you're studying such folks as the Black Panthers and Martin Luther King. And you notice that I'm talking about people from a diversity of viewpoints, because I've also studied some of the leaders of like the Latinx movement, the current Latinx movement, but also some of their more established Latin leaders. So definitely that's some of the things that have been going on in my world. I'm hoping that others might come in and tell us some of the things that they are engaged in as well. But that's kind of what we've got going on. I'm looking in there. I don't see my guests appearing yet, but I do hope that they will be appearing soon. Maybe Kim is in conversation with them, because I did talk to Tim. And Tim did say that he would be coming in to talk to us about the program that he's got me in, which is basically teaching us about how to do this kind of thing that we're doing right now, the being live and being right here on camera. So that's some of the things that I have been engaged in. I know many of us are thinking about things that are going on in the world. As you can tell, I'm sitting here in my apartment, definitely checking out what's going on. I've got my podcast that'll be airing later on this evening, and Dean may be joining us as well. Dean is my co-host on that show. But Dean, I'm hoping will be joining us in the not too distant future, so we can talk about some of the things that we've got going on. But we've got a very interesting conversation on this evening. We've got two folks that are involved in the field of helping folks that are involved in the prison system and things of that nature. So we've got two folks that are involved in that will be joining the show. One is running a program called the Jubilee House, and so they will be on. And then I've got Marion on, and he's got some things going on in that field as well. And then we'll be joined by Julie Weeks, who is taking the class with me, and she's that's the Tim Song class. So she's taking that class, and we'll talk about the program that she's working on and how she's learning from the class. And then I've got some musicians that were involved in the old days of music. They were kind of involved, I believe, in like the roadie field and kind of the behind the scenes people. But they were involved over there in the Fillmore East area of San Francisco. So they were involved in a number of those conversations. So it'll be very interesting to see what they've got to say. And there may be one or two other guests that are coming. Oh, there is another guest I just remembered, because Miss Clemente, who is a Latinx activist, she will be joining us on this evening as well. She's ran for the Green Party as a vice presidential candidate, if I remember correctly. And so she will be joining us. She has also, of course, been involved in New York politics as well as on the federal level. So it should be a very interesting conversation with her also. So that'll be going on from 7 to 9 on the podcast that I do, which also is on Monday nights. That's between the hours of 7 and 9. So that's 7 and 9 our time and everything. So on the East Coast time. So it should be a very interesting conversation. So we're looking forward to that. And of course, we're always looking for other guests as well, because me and Dean have started, basically amounts to like a little podcast network. So we've got some other podcasts that are affiliated with us as well, including Omasadi's one about the Black Girl's Guide to Menopause. And also we've got one that is Jess Everhart And kind of what she does is deals with a lot with justice and things of that nature. So definitely seeing how that will go and seeing how that will go along with that. I see that one of the members of our family, Jim, has jumped in and said how proud he is of the show and how we're being involved in things of that nature. Who knows? Maybe I'll see if Jim wants to jump in on the conversation if he's available. But Kim will have to make that introduction and see if he wants to jump in on our conversation and what we're doing here on this show. So definitely looking forward to hearing more about what folks have got to say. If you're watching this show on Facebook and you're interested in learning more about what we're doing, definitely, reach out to me. Let me know what you're thinking of the show. If you've got any questions involving what we're doing, we're planning to do, like I said, definitely experience in radio, definitely have done a lot of conversations in radio. So I love doing interviews. So I'm definitely looking forward to having some interview conversations. So definitely that's some of the things that will be going on. Matter of fact, I know that Kim has done this a couple of times. So I think I might reach back and see what kind of books we've got here that we might decide to pull off and talk about. So let's see what books we've got here that might be of interest to others. Well, we've got, of course, John Grisham. I've got the John Grisham book here. And of course, we've got a book that many people are aware of, The Celeste Prophecy. So The Celeste Prophecy is a very interesting book, but this is one that I know that many people will be engaged in and wondering about. I was actually have the pleasure one time of meeting Chris Gardner. Chris Gardner is a very interesting gentleman who, as many people know, there was a movie made about his life and times and things of that nature. So definitely he had a very fascinating story. And of course, there was an event at North Carolina Mutual, which is a very popular place here that I attended. So definitely doing well and definitely looking forward to telling you more about the time that I met this gentleman. But, there was a movie that was made about his life. And he definitely came up from like the bootstraps. He had gone through some very difficult periods. I mean, some very hard periods and everything. So this is definitely a great book. If you're not familiar with it, check it out. The Pursuit of Happiness by Chris Gardner. That's The Pursuit of Happiness by Chris Gardner. If you're not familiar with it, I would definitely recommend that you learn more about that particular book. So it's a great book that you might be interested in learning more about. So that's one of the books that I think folks will find of interest. And of course, I've got other books here as well that people might find of interest. Of course, you cannot go wrong without knowing this very important document. We need to know it very much in this day and time, the U.S. Constitution. Now, they have some people that, in my mind, might be trampling on the U.S. Constitution. So definitely, if you're not familiar with this book, get this book, the U.S. Constitution, and you learn about the different rights and bills that exist. So, those are two very important books that we all need to know and be aware of. The U.S. Constitution is definitely a very important one that we should all be aware of. So, like I said, there's a lot of people involved in politics that I think don't probably even know that much about the Constitution themselves. And I'm not going to say that I know all the amendments. I need to do a better job of educating myself, but I do have the pocket version right there so that I can keep track of some things that I need to know, some of the very basic bills that we all need to be aware of. So definitely the U.S. Constitution is a very important book. And of course, like I said, there are a number of other great books here that I am a big fan of and all of that. Sometimes we also want books that are a little bit on the silly side. So here's another one. It is a good book to know. It is The Complete Prose of Woody Allen. That's right, The Complete Prose of Woody Allen. That's just some of the books that are in my collection of books over here. And that is The Complete Prose of Woody Allen. Woody Allen is definitely a hilarious and amazing comedian and things of that nature. So that's just some of the books. See if there's any others that I want to talk about. Of course, many people wonder about politics and things of that nature. And you might be interested in this book. And this is a book that talks about Rush Limbaugh and what Al Franken thinks of him. So that's a book that I also have in my book collection. So these are books that are in my book collection that you might be interested in. I'll tell you about some of the more books that I have as well as a later date. But those are some of the books that are in my collection and some of the books that I think folks may be interested in learning more about. So that's some of what's going on in my world and things of that nature. I see that Ankit has joined our conversation, and he's definitely enjoying what we're saying, and he's excited to see a radio show right here on IBM.TV. So definitely glad to see that he is enjoying what we are saying and doing. Might have to go get a drink of water in a little bit. I love to talk, and I definitely love being engaged in conversation. But right now, throat was a little parched, so I might have to get a glass of water and things of that nature. Because I did the right thing. I definitely covered my mouth when I remember something I'm supposed to do during this day and time. So, everybody's going on with what's going on with the pandemic and things of that nature. And I know our ambassador will be joining us later on. And she's always talking about cover your mouth when you sneeze. So I definitely tried to remember what our ambassador said. Aren't you proud of me, Ankit? Oh, I did a good job of trying to remember how to do that. Probably should have done it in my elbow now that I think about it, because I think that that's what she recommends. But I did try to cover the mouth when that little bit of a sneeze came around. So just wanted to say that right here and there. And of course, since this is a radio show, I might even also be engaging in some musical conversations and talking about some of the music that is very dear to me as well, as I am a big fan of blues music, and I do have some blues music that is nearby. So I may put on some music and let y'all hear some of the music that is very important to me. This being a TV show, I may try to pull up some videos of some of the artists that I am a big fan of as well. But in the meantime, I may just have it playing in the background. And I may play that later on one of the shows as well. So there's a good possibility that you might hear some music like Bobby Hinton, who's a local artist, or Cool John Ferguson, who's a local, or John Shane. All of them are local artists. Or you might hear me grab some national artists, folks like Buddy Guy, B.B. King, folks like that, Little Walter, and just folks that fall in that. But don't think that it's just going to be blues, because even though blues radio is my email, bluesradio@gmail.com, that's not the only kind of music that I like. I'm also a big fan of soul and R&B, big fan of jazz. So there's all kinds of folks that you may hear from me as well. So definitely keep that in mind. Definitely interested in having a conversation with that. So that'll be very interesting to see how that goes along. And hopefully Jim will be joining us. I see that we're having some conversations to see if Jim will be joining us. And also I'm waiting to hear if Tim Sohn will be coming into the conversation as well. So these are some of the folks that we have reached out to for this particular show. But we've been having a very lively conversation. And like I said, there are some great books and some amazing books out there. And like I said, I'm a big fan of all kinds of music. Everything from, like I named a couple of genres, but there's even genres that people would be surprised that I like some of their sounds. Not so much the Latin music. A lot of people like Latin music. But, I've heard some good polka. And that's right. And we have a very good polka band that is based right here in the Triangle. I've heard a good couple of Irish folk bands, and there are a couple of those that I believe exist here in the area. And, some folks may be surprised, but there's even bluegrass and country that I am a big fan of. As a matter of fact, there's a band that is very interesting. I might see if I can't get them to come on the show one of these times, called Gangsta Grass. They blend bluegrass with rap. And that's how they came up with the name Gangsta Grass. And they played here in the area a couple of times. Of course, everybody's kind of holed up because of what's going on in the world. So they are doing concerts and things of that nature from the computer, but not doing that much travel right now. But hopefully that will all be changing in the very near future. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out and what folks think about what goes on with that. So I'm very interested in seeing how that plays out and what goes on with that. If we hear anything more from them or what's going to happen along those lines. So it's going to be very interesting to see what goes on and if we can get them here. Because there are a couple of artists here. Like I said, I do love the arts, both visual arts, my dad being a photographer as well as being involved in other forms of the arts. But then I also love the theater arts and music and dance and a number of other things. So there are some artists that I'm hoping to bring on to this platform so that we can have conversations with them about what they're involved in. So definitely should be interesting to see what they've got to say and what they are doing. So definitely it should be interesting, and we're looking forward to having a great conversation with them as this show goes on. Because like I said, I've had the pleasure of being on the podcaster show and on the entrepreneur show. The entrepreneurs is on Wednesday, the podcasters is on Thursday, and for the first time this past week, I was on the Saturday show as well. So had a pleasure of being on some of the other shows and have thoroughly enjoyed it. So definitely looking forward to having more and more people learning about the various things that are going on around the world, not just here. You know, I've got friends that are involved in the arts and activism, not just here in North Carolina, but also here in the United States and around the world. So it should be great having conversations with them and talking to them about what they are involved in. So definitely should be very interested in seeing how that goes. If anybody is over here checking us out, I would love to hear how things are going on in your part of the world as far as how you're coping with the pandemic, what you're doing. Are you working from home? Are your kids working from home? I don't have any kids, but I do have 2 nephews and plenty of friends that do have kids, some that are of school age, many that are the young adult age or the age of like college kids and things along that line. So I'm very interested to see what happens and how they are surviving. So hopefully we'll be getting into conversation with them in the very near future, and we'll be talking to them about what they've got going on. So we'll see how that all plays out and what happens with that. So I'm definitely interested in seeing what folks have to say and what they're doing in that regard. So hopefully folks will be joining our conversation in the very near future. I'm going to check with my producers and see if they've heard from any of the people that are saying that they want to come on, either from our family or from other parts of the family as well. I know there's been some conversation with Jim, who is a member of the IBM.TV family. And of course, I've had conversations with Tim Sohn and others. So hopefully we're going to see if they're going to get a chance to jump in on the conversation. I do know that some of them told me that they would be available if needed. And like I said, I'm hoping that Dean, who I do the show with, in terms of the Straight Talk with Dean and Marc, will be joining us as well. So these are just some of the folks that I have reached out to on my own. But like I said, I'm going to check with the producers and see if they've got any word as to whether we've heard from any of those folks or not, since I unfortunately cannot see who's in the room other than those that are doing chats and everything. So definitely I'm hoping that we've got some folks engaged that are in the room. So Kim, if you can hear me, are you still in there and in the room? And I hope that I'm doing a good job. But if you can jump in and let me know what we've got going on, that would be greatly appreciated.
Hey, Marc.
Hey.
So I dove off on you like that, but I work all day with no food. So we had usually sometimes I'll get a few minute break and I can get something to snack on. But I had to run and get something to eat. So a lot of people don't know IBM TV, we're growing. And thanks to Marc, we're doing some new shows. And so we experienced some growing pains, just like any startup or any business. Those growing pains are great, and you're welcoming them. And we did promise Marc that we would be here to help him, support him, get him going. So I'm sorry, I heard you talking, but I'm eating my favorite quick thing that's not really good for you, but it's peanut butter. And so, you can't talk with
No, you cannot talk with peanut butter in your mouth.
You cannot talk with peanut butter in your mouth. And I know everybody goes, why do you do that? Well, it's just the quickest thing for me to get. It's packed full of protein, and it's healthy in many ways for you. Probably not the way I eat it, but I don't eat it with jelly or anything, just plain peanut butter. But so yeah, I had to quickly get some protein in me so I don't pass out on you while I help you run your show. I sent Jim a link. So people, this is kind of how we're going to do the radio show, just to give people incentive to call in or text in All you have to do is send a shout out that you'd like to be on the show. You got to promise to be good. No profanity, no porn, no heavy politics. We are not,
Right.
we're not about the controversial politic issues. Though that can come up occasionally. I'll let Marc control. Please be aware that if you do come on the show, I'll give you some little rules here. And you are engaging in bad talk because we're about smart TV,
Yeah.
edutaining, as we say it, educational and entertaining. But if you do engage in that, Marc's got this quick little fun button that he can kick you out. All right.
Yes.
So Nick loves to use it just to pick on people. He goes, watch this. I could do this if I don't like you, click, or, if I want to be. So Marc will have, or one of the producers or directors who will be working with Marc will have the ability to kick you off. That doesn't mean we don't like you. It just means you were not abiding by our rules. And again, that's
Right.
no profanity, no porn, no rude talk. Okay, people, we're about promoting and bringing out the positive of power thinking. And Marc, thank you for sharing your books with me because, I love books, right? I am a big fan of, and that's just one bookshelf. So I've got another bookshelf over here and one out. I got a dual bookshelf. This sounds weird, but out in the garage because it's somewhat environmentally controlled out there. And I got a double bookshelf that goes about 20 foot high in the garage. I can't throw away a book. It's really bad.
Oh, Kim, I can definitely relate to you. I cannot throw away a book. This is my most immediate bookshelf because I'm very bad in terms of like house places that you wind up throwing the books. So I was keeping some of my books in the kitchen cabinet in my apartment, and I was thinking to myself, that makes no sense to have books where dishes need to be. So I was at a discount store and bought a bookshelf to try to, make the apartment have things that it needs to be. So like, if the cabinet is intended because it's above the oven and the sink for dishes and kitchenware, I figured that's what it needed to do. So I put those books or moved those books away from there onto the newer bookshelf. But I have, there's a bookshelf in my living room, actually, and like a coffee table. So there's actually two bookshelves in my living room and a bookshelf in my bedroom. So I'm with you. I've got 4 bookshelves and I probably still have space to even put some other books. And I've got, like you, a tremendous amount of books. I just shared 4 of them, including the Constitution, that I think people should know about. But during the course of these, years and decades or however long we can do this, I have many books that we will be talking about that I've helped to bring on in addition to the guests. And I can relate to what you're saying about the peanut butter and not doing what you're supposed to do, because I went and also bought a blender. I think I mentioned that on one of our other shows, and I used the blender. First time, I don't think I used it right because the drink didn't come out quite the way I wanted. I was quite pleased with the second attempt, and I went and got some ice cream, bad me, and I went and got some bananas and some strawberries, and I made like a smoothie that was very good and very refreshing. Probably not very nutritional because that sounds like a lot of sugar, but it was still very good, and I definitely enjoyed it. And then a friend of mine came by, and they were going out to get a shake, so they were going to have to get a smoothie of their own, and then they were going to stop by a popular gas station that many people know that is also the title of a bed item. I'll just leave you that clue. And then when they stopped by there, they got a pizza. And notice I said I had already had dinner and already done everything that I was supposed to do, but I still, because we were eating food, was tempted to get some other food, and I got a cheeseburger with fried topping. So even though I had already eaten and probably didn't need any additional food, we've talked about this before, that, we need to work on the dietary and losing some weight, but I probably didn't need the extra food, but they were getting food, so I was tempted to get it as well. So yeah, I know how that can be sometimes.
So sometimes I don't eat right. Sometimes I forget to eat. That's worse. So no, I get you. Here's what's important. It's important to just find that balance. That milkshake sounds awesome. And what I used to do, I'm a big fan of just fresh cream. You blend it up, it gets real thick and fluffy. and then you throw your other stuff in there. And that tastes just as good as ice cream. I love ice cream, but a lot of ice cream has a lot of that bad stuff in it. So I usually stick to Breyers, right? Because Breyers is just going to have the cream, or you can look for other brands, but just the cream, the sugar, but none of the other aspargum and all the additives. So, but every Sunday right now, we're doing something to help you work it off. That helps you burn the ketosis and help you learn to burn all the fat out of your body, which is hot yoga.
Right.
And I did my first hot yoga ever in my life. Because I work out in different ways, and I have physical therapy every day. But I did my first hot yoga yesterday, and I'm proud that I kept up with Dr. Yu, who is, to me, very physically fit. But he even had a challenge. I mean, this is he said his first time in years, and he decided to do it because we're out to lose the COVID-19. You know how you put on the freshman 10? Well, this is the COVID-19. We feel like we put on about 19. I feel like I put on 19 pounds during COVID. Probably not that much, but I'd like to lose about that much. And, but we're also building the immunity so we can lose the COVID-19, right? Because we've learned that there's really no cure for COVID-19. We're just going to have to build our immunity. And I know everyone's hopeful for a vaccine. There's all kinds of people going, oh, we're going to get it by this day. No, you know what? It's not going to happen this year because they got to test it. And I don't know about you, Mark, but I am not going to let them test it on me until it's been tested on animals. I'm sorry.
I agree with you on that. 100%.
I mean, why would we want to do that?
Yeah, I don't think we want to do that at all because, like I said, that just sounds very dangerous. I wanted to test it on animals. I want to make sure that it's actually going to be effective and things of that nature. Like I mentioned on one of our previous shows, not this show because it's the first time that we're doing it here, my show and everything, but I have appeared on some of your other shows. And I do know there are people concerned in the African-American community just because they have some fears because of past testing that has gone on in the world that was abusive of other minority cultures and things of that nature. So there are some people that are concerned about that.
We should never test people based on prejudice or minority or culture. Now, I do have a big concern too when it comes to vaccines, something that I don't know that they think that I don't think they really think about. But I think different vaccines for different cultures and different DNA types, right? I think it's very important to consider because I don't think just every vaccine is one global fix. I think that our DNAs are different. I think that we have different cultures of foods we eat that might countercross the what a vaccine can or would do in our body. Everybody might think I'm crazy, but I'm allergic to a lot of the stuff that's out there. Wow. I've had the National Heart Association president in one time because I was totally allergic to a statin. Every time they put a statin in my body, my throat swelled up. So when you read that disclaimer that says may cause throat swelling, that unfortunately is me. But I'm allergic to a lot of things. I can taste, I'm allergic to non-fat. I am allergic. Can you believe that? How lucky am I? I cannot eat non-fat foods.
Wow.
Think about that. How about you? I mean, what a blessing. I don't have to eat any of that processed non-fat crap.
I can't think of anything that I'm allergic to. And I'm trying to think if there's anything that I've had allergies to in the past, and nothing's coming to my mind. I do know that family-wise, I've got a couple of eczema things that might pop up every once in a while, and definitely there are family members that have had it happen. And so some of that is environmentally based, I'm sure. But I can't think of a food that I have ever been allergic to. I'm sure there might be something, but if it is, it hasn't caused any problems. Now, there's some foods that don't like me in the sense that they put on too much weight, or they might do other things. Like I'm not lactose intolerant, so milk's good by me, and things of that nature. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I'm actually not that good with, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head because I'm probably one of those people that, there's that old saying about you're good for all foods. If you see a food, did you like the food or something like that? And that's kind of like me because there's many foods that I definitely enjoy and probably enjoy more than they enjoy me. But and I'm trying to think of this. I used to have to be the biggest fan of zucchini, and I don't know. I haven't tried it recently, so I don't know how I feel about it now. Of course, there's some soul foods that, because I know what they are, I'm not exactly going to rush to get them. So I know we're in the South, me, both you and me. But when we talk about chitlins, folks don't know what we're talking about. And I know some folks that love that dish, but when I learned what it was, not really trying to have that. So not for me.
That's something too, right? Where it comes from, what it is. It's like I'm not a huge fan of eggplant, like the big one, but I love the Japanese eggplant. It's very thin, so it's not very watery when you cook it, and it batters well, and it makes great chips. The thin eggplant, it's very thin, but it really makes. In fact, my kids don't even know they're eating eggplant.
Oh.
We make a lot. We light batter them. We don't do the heavy flour batter. We do a rice batter, and when the kids eat it, they're just like they gobble it down like banshees. Or like locusts on a field. It's amazing. The plate's gone, and we got to fry up some more. And they have no idea. In fact, when we told them it was eggplant chips, they're like almost wanted to go, ooh, gross, but they didn't.
They were like, not that.
Yeah. But they didn't. I'm like you though. I love almost all except peas. I don't like peas. I'm allergic to those. I'll throw them up. But I'm allergic to non-fat. You know what happens to me when I eat non-fat?
What happens?
So I turn into the Thing. Have you ever seen the Thing of the
old TV show?
Yeah. You remember the
movie?
big bulky blotches and
yes.
Yeah, that's what happens to me.
Oh no.
I kid you not. It does. I turn into this big blotch, but it looks like big square blotches, and I swell up and look horrifying, scary, like a monster. And it happened to me on the way home from Florida one time. We went down to my son and I went down there to stay with some friends and do Disney and stuff like that. And he was driving back because I wasn't feeling well, and my nephew was in the back seat. And all of a sudden, I was just like, I can't breathe well. Something's not right. And I was looking, I had these big blotches. And my nephew's going, oh, my God, it's so cool. She's turning into the Thing. He's like poking.
Poking you, trying to cure you.
No, he thought it was just cool. Like, oh, my God, she's turning into the Thing. And so bless my son, 16, maybe 17, driving down the highway from Florida to North Carolina. He calls my sister who works in the emergency room, and she says, pull into it because I couldn't find my EpiPen. And she said, pull into a gas station real quick and get Tums, a thing of Tums, a thing of Loratadine, which is Claritin, and a Benadryl. And make her eat the Tums first and then give her these other two things. That prevented me from swelling up here. The Tums or Rolaids, they make whatever you put in your system activate faster.
Wow.
Like real fast. So I didn't know any of this. So my son, whips into the first gas station he can get to, runs in, gets stuff, and it's just bless his heart, playing emergency with me because we didn't have time, I guess, to call 911. But that stopped me from this. But I still grew these big funky. I look like the Thing, and so my nephew was freaking out. But they got me to the emergency room after they did that, and the doctors were like, "Wow, how did you know to take that emergency setup? That's what we try to practice here if we don't have an EpiPen." But out of that, I learned I can no longer eat I could no longer eat anything that said non-fat on it. And I discovered that non-fat foods have never tasted good to me anyway. I could taste something different in them. So, but I've also learned that a lot of the non-fat foods that you eat that are hydrogenated will triple or quadruple the amount of fat in your arteries. So everybody's thinking they're eating this, no fat butter or no, and it's if it's hydrogenated, it's actually quadrupling the cholesterol in your body, the fat. Mm-hmm. So I tell people I'm actually maybe blessed because I like the food better. I'll eat less because it satisfies me. Mm-hmm. So it's not, So you just, listen to your body, right?
Yeah, you have to listen to your body, but sometimes we don't want to listen to our body. I will never forget, and this happened maybe I was at the radio station in Central's. I was working at that particular radio station at North Carolina Central, and I like to help people and I like to volunteer and do different things. And I was helping them out during a snowstorm. So I went, and this was probably 15 years ago. I went for a walk because I went first to the bus stop because I'm a mass transit person. And I was going to catch the bus, and that should have been the first clue. Buses weren't running. So they had asked me to come in and substitute for somebody. And I was like, I'll walk to the bus stop, and the buses weren't running. So that should have been my first clue. So I should have listened right then and there. But no, I was stubborn even then. So I probably in my, let's say, late 30s, early 40s. So I was like, I'm going to keep on going. So I turned around and walked toward the radio station. And I think I didn't even get downtown. And before I could get downtown, what happened there? Before I could get downtown,
this is our radio show. I just wanted to.
No problem. Before I could get downtown and turn toward Central, I slipped and fell. And I fell on the road, so the pavement of the road. And I heard it pop when I fell. And people driving by, a few that are going out in the snow. And I'm sitting there going like, nah, that's not what I heard. And so, you mentally tell yourself that you did not break anything. So, and, hands over here looking like swinging the loose and everything because something's clearly broken. But I'm Mr. Stubborn and I'm like, no, nothing happened. And then when I got to a place of a city office and had them call EMS, they're like, yeah, you broke your arm. So I'm like, but, mentally, I'm trying to tell myself that, no, I'm good. I'm all right. And I plainly heard the crack. I mean, I heard the bone crack, but I was telling myself that I didn't hear it. So I was trying to mentally tell myself that is not what I heard, even though I plainly heard it crack.
Well, and sometimes we hear things that move in our body. We don't really break anything. If you've ever been to a chiropractor, you sound like popping bubble paper.
Yep.
Right? So our bodies make noises when we stress them past a certain point. It may not break anything, but it hurts, or you feel it, or you hear it. I've definitely heard things move in my body, and I've broken my arm before, and I could hear it. I could hear it crack, and and I think mentally, I told myself, "Oh my gosh, I broke my arm." So, yeah, But, we got to start thinking healthier. The conversation, this is how we've come together is through COVID-19. Mm-hmm. And again, the key is to not let your body get out of shape just because you're, shelter in place or stay at home doesn't mean you can't exercise. And this is some of the things we're trying to emphasize is we have a tendency of getting into our homes and think, oh, we got to stay here. We're prisoners. Get outside. Even if you live in an apartment building of some kind, get out that door. Get under the sun for 15 minutes at least.
Yeah, it was only for 15, 20 minutes. I definitely believe that you have to do that. Get some sunshine. Just get some fresh air. You need to do that on a regular basis. Actually, a person that was connected to the Durham area was involved in county government or Chamber of Commerce. That's not county government, but they had actually written a letter. And I'm curious what you think about this thing, but they had written a letter in their blog. Big shout out to Casey Steinbrenner, I think is her name. But in the blog, and she's no longer in that office, she was talking about how she feels that a lot of, we call ourselves Economic Monday, in the whole block, that a lot of companies are not preparing themselves to be ready for the recovery that we're supposed to be in, because basically she was putting things into three categories: those that are definitely going to be prepared, those that might be prepared, and those that are probably not going to be prepared at all. And unfortunately, the entertainment industry was one of those that she put in the not prepared at all category. But she did think that they could do things about that. But I was just wondering what you think in the sense of now that we are having people going back to work and things of that nature. Do you think that we're actually being prepared to get engaged in the economy again, or do you think that folks are going to not do what we're supposed to do, which is stimulate the economy, and that they're going to hoard the money? But I'm just wondering, do you think that we're actually both on a business side, because I know you're a businesswoman, are we prepared to actually get our businesses re-engaged, or are you of the same fear that person I was talking about is, which is that some of these businesses will fall by the wayside, and some of them may need to fall by the wayside.
Some of them have probably already fallen by the wayside. I think the ones that suffered the most during this economic downturn should not have, and that is our, local community businesses, right? Not the big corporate businesses, but the local community businesses. And what people, especially our government, supposedly leaders, tend to forget is they are the blood veins of our society. They are what makes everything function properly in our United States as a whole, or in the world as a whole. Everyone thinks it's the big corporate companies, and it is not. Okay, think about it. So one of the things I hope happens out of this is that we get back to more from the farm to the table kind of community, where we start growing our own food in our own community. Maybe we put into some places more gardening that is, where we can garden year round and provide our foods, because I think that was a big problem during all of this crisis was how do you provide food that is imported in from all over the world? You can. So what do you do? Okay, you can either sit and cry and go, boo-hoo, I can't get that particular piece of fruit or vegetable, or you can learn how to grow it in a means that is environmentally controlled so that you can have it year round. And yes, you can do that. And you do it for the community. All right. So this is where you don't need the big fields. I'm not putting agriculture down, but I will tell the world right now today, Economic Monday, I meant to bring it up in our economic talks today, but I took half the day off, is that the Small Business Association is no longer giving money, stimulus money to small businesses. It's only giving money to agriculture right now. So that's the only industry that's getting money. But hey, why not start a community agriculture business?
Yeah.
And get some of that money back into the community. And so what you're going to do is you're going to build a community garden that can sustain, all 4 seasons, right? Mm-hmm. And so you need the materials to do that. And usually that's a big tent of some kind, right? And the right lighting, and what else? Water. So you can do a hydropod, very simple, very easy hydropod system. You don't even need good soil. You just need good fish. And there are a lot of hydropods. I don't know if you've been out to visit them, but there are a lot in North Carolina. There are, they're growing big. And one guy, he was trying to do something similar in one of the buildings downtown. I don't know, but why not, right? Why not use an old building? But the thing is to grow like your lettuce was one of the first hydropod things, right? All your leafy greens, lettuce, spinach, and stuff like that, because it's easy to grow in a hydropod system because of the way the roots grow. And what you do is you have a big fish tank somewhere. If you do some research on this, you have a big fish tank, and that fish is what feeds the food, nutrients that the plants need. Mm-hmm. Now you don't have any real gardening going on at this point, just planting and harvesting, right? Way cool. But why not do this in each community? And the community provides its own food.
That would be wonderful. I think that's a great idea.
Cut out the grocery market, because the grocery market carries many other items that we need, right? Not everybody can farm their own animals, but, a lot of people in the community can do chickens. Yeah. And they're not my favorite. It's probably the only animal I fear besides an alligator. But they're mean.
Wait a minute, you fear chickens?
Oh, yeah, they're mean. Have you ever been into a coop and they attack you? Oh, I was a kid.
I've lived in the rural North Carolina, so I know chickens, and I know that they're not the nicest critters in terms of that, but, a lot of critters that are...
They told me a lesson very young. Somebody else can do the coop thing. I didn't I thought, this is great. I'm going to go collect eggs. I was so excited, right? And they just attacked me, and I'm like, that's it. Fun. You'll never see me in a chicken coop again. I appreciate the eggs, but no, gardening, you do the big, if you do the right kind of fish, it might be fish that you can eat, right? So there's a cycle that you can do in that kind of gardening system. And you keep it, year round by building yourself a small building or putting it indoors in some sort of way, put a tent over it with good lights. There are all kinds of ways to do out there. I have a solar powered water generator that also generates power for lights. And
Okay.
it's very small. I'll see if I can get a video of it. But it's very small, like in a small suitcase. It's actually in a Pelican case, but it's the size of a small suitcase. In fact, the airlines let me check it. And but it's got a solar panel on it. So what it does is it runs the generators to pump water. So you can use that to run your water and cycle your water, because you don't want water to sit stagnant, because it will develop algae and bugs and nappy. But you also want it to cycle to generate the fish elements that you're creating, right? So it cycles through, and there's a certain pound per square inch pressure per square inch that you want pushed through. But no, I mean, think about how if we just gathered stimulus money for that.
Yep.
Community.
It would be so wonderful. And there's some community gardens, like you said, that are popping up, new community gardens. I know there's one here in the Durham area that people are doing and things of that nature. So you're right. Community gardens would be wonderful. I remember my parents had like a commune area where they were doing that. And that was in the 70s, I believe. But definitely, I think that those community gardens would be wonderful if we could get those things going, and it would just be truly amazing. I just happened to glance at my news feeds that come across and everything, and we're talking about how things are going on in the state. Folks that are listening and are following what's going on here, meaning North Carolina, where we are at the moment, but we're global, worldwide. But people are interested in what's going on in all the different parts. I just saw that Governor Cooper has said that by midweek, he's expecting that we can go to phase 2. So I think he's planning to open up the state even more. That's what he just announced, that he's going to make a decision by midweek.
How is the state doing? Have we looked lately? You keep talking. I'll pull it up. Go ahead.
The last time I looked, the numbers were going up, which is actually why I'm worried about the fact of us going to phase 2, because there was numbers steadily going up. I think cases have been going up. Now, they say that part of that is due to the fact that it's more testing. More testing equals more numbers. And I get that. But at the same time, I'd rather us be totally safe versus less safe. So when I saw that breaking news that he was hopeful of opening up phase 2, and I think it's a 3 or 4 phase strategy, that worries me, because like I said.
Okay, so let's take a look at world numbers real quick. Can you see this?
Cool.
So, like Nick and I predicted, we did the math at the very beginning when we realized that they were off with their count. We realized they never noticed this, but we made a point of trying to say it and send the message to them that, hey, you're doing the results based on tests that were taken 14 days ago.
Right.
We've got rapid test kits now, but I think that even some of the test results, because they still have to be processed through the lab, are taking about 10 days. Through the month of March, it was taking anywhere from 14 to 20 days. But if you take a look at, we have reached over 1 million cases in the, and so we were right at 98, 980,000, I think, at the beginning of last week. So we've literally gone over 1.5 million now. We're over 1.5 million. So then if you take a look at here, I'll make it so it's just a screen for you. All right. I like to look at your expressions though. So, but let's take a look. Hold on. I'm going to get rid of these banners so that we can talk a little bit better. And I just hit a banner that I can't find now. April 7th. So, excuse me, I didn't have your folder set up. So, I'm trying to get, and Kit, can you help me find this and get rid of this? We got to get rid of a lot of these banners. But anyway, so, crap.
Oh, right. It's okay. No, I'm enjoying seeing the banner go across. But
yeah, but we that's not the right banner. Hold on just a sec. But anyway, so I need to get rid of that last one. Why won't it go? And there's a problem here. Can you help me?
It's going to try to solve the problem.
IBM, DJ quarantine. But anyway, bear with us a minute while we work through this technical difficulty.
Oh, we're going to get it all together. Like I said, first one. We got to get through the kinks and
Yeah,
everything. We
we
know that.
always go through, everyone has its own little trial and tribulation.
Exactly.
I was so impressed with Alexandra. Boy, she pulled together a good visual. Your sound has gotten a whole lot better since the first day you even came to visit us. So,
Yes.
we each work our little part. And I know why I can't get rid of that one. Here we go. There you
There
go.
we go.
All right, got it. See,
Yeah.
Ann Kid has been taking over, and I forgot how we do these things. So anyway, if you take a look at the numbers here, USA is 1.5 million. We had 10,453 new cases. But take a look at the death toll, right? 91,460. We were, what was it, last week? It was probably right around 80. So, yeah, that sounds about right. But that's a lot of deaths. If you take a look at per million, deaths per million, we're 277. Spain has exceeded us in deaths per million. But if you take a look at the fact that they haven't done a lot of testing, they're a smaller country, those kind of things. But if you take a look at the status here, and then let's go visit North Carolina. Let's see if I can pull up North Carolina. Here we go. Let's go to USA. So in USA, here's our final count for today. And by the way, folks, if you want to go out to this site, it's worldometers.info. They're what provides the almost real-time statistics for global stats. But for Corona, they update it every day at noon. So sometimes you're not going to see, like Illinois, I don't see any updates. So they might not have their update today. But generally, every day at noon, they do an update. But there's California. So New York is getting really close to that 500,000 mark, which is what Nick and I predicted back in the beginning of the show, because we said, whoa, they're not looking at the right stats. We're going to be, right at 500,000 before June. So New Jersey, of course, these are high, big cities. It's very, very dense. Massachusetts, but let's see how far down North Carolina is. Florida is pretty high.
North Carolina is +7, and he's talking about going to phase 2, and we just went up +7. So, like I said, that's kind of figures that worry me.
See North Carolina? How far down is North Carolina?
I just saw it. You just passed it. That's the one that said +7. It's right after Washington.
Right here. Right here is North Carolina.
In +7 in terms of deaths, it's actually +4. It's 64 in terms of new cases. That was just +7 in terms of deaths, but +4, 64 in terms of new cases.
Well, and we have to ask ourselves, why did those deaths occur? And then I was watching Michael Hansen, who is a pulmonary doctor. So we've had a pulmonary expert actually that comes on our show several times out of India. He's a pulmonary physician. But Mike Hansen also has some really, really good videos. He's from North Carolina. And they did 12 autopsies of COVID patients on video.
Okay.
And it shows you why the people are dying from COVID. And it's a very interesting series. You really need to be able to stomach that medical aspect of it. But, over the years, thanks to reality TV, we've lost a lot of that. We've become numb to
we've become numb to that. And I think video games haven't helped movies. A lot of times when we see death, we're not concerned about them just because it happens so much in our media and everything. So I agree with you on that. And then the other thing that I worry about is and I think you mentioned it on some other shows, is people getting sick and passing away. And it may be COVID related, but we're not sure whether COVID was the final factor or whether it was just like an outlying factor. So there are different ways of going on, because I know that even Bradford Marcellus's dad, Ellis Marcellus, who passed away, they definitely said that was COVID related. But then there were some others that have passed away and they're not 100% sure whether COVID added to it or not.
You can't put COVID on the death certificate if they did not test positive or were not tested at all for it. So if it was DOA or they were doing something else prior to testing the person for COVID, they are not going to be able to put that on the death certificate. Now, if a person came into the hospital with COVID and they were tested positive with COVID, even if they had other complications, which everyone goes, well, they had a heart disease, so I want heart disease on their death certificate. I'm like, well, you know what? Maybe their heart disease would not have been pushed to a death if it had not been for COVID. So I still believe, I am still a strong, firm believer that if the person came in with COVID-19 and they died due to complications with COVID-19, then it should be reported as such. But, you know, it's kind of like I could be dying of lung cancer right now, but a man came into my front door and shot me with a gun. Now, which one are you going to put on my death certificate?
They're probably going to put the murder on the death certificate because you were hit by the bullet.
Right.
Not the fact that you had other things going on.
I was dying of lung cancer to begin with, right? So yeah, you know, be smart about this. That people got shot with a bullet of COVID-19. And if that's what killed them, it's the same thing in forensics, people. Okay, think about forensics. When they go and they do forensics of a person, they're going to determine whether that bullet killed the person or maybe the person bled out a different way, but it was the cause of the bullet that caused the bleed out, or did the person die of a heart attack? Did they die before the bullet hit him? Believe me, forensics can go this deep. Even though a person got shot, they may look at, well, could they have had the heart attack before the bullet hit him? And in that case, it might change the case for the person who shot the gun. But did shooting them cause the heart attack? Yeah, probably. But it aided in the help, but it may not be considered, you know, the layers of murder and stuff like that. So you got to look at these forensic situations. But yeah, if a person tests positive with COVID and they're brought in because of COVID complications and they die because of COVID complications, then that's the bullet that killed them.
Right.
You know? Get over yourself, people, and quit making this a political matter. I get irritated with all these people and they're trying to drive it as a political, well, you know, they're Republicans. So of course they're going to put COVID on everything. And I'm like, well, what about the Democrats? They're going to put COVID on everything. Yeah,
but politics is an interesting bedfellow for a lot of folks. It's actually, just if I can give a plug, and I think she's going to be joining us. We're actually going to have a candidate. And if you want to join again this evening, I would love to have you back again. But on the regular radio podcast, we're going to have a young lady, Roberta Clemente, I believe is her name. And some people say that she was AOC before AOC, but she actually ran as I think vice presidential candidate on the Green Party ticket. So that's one of the things I want to talk to her about, what I've talked to you about and others about, which is, you know, how can we get to the point of not having a two-party system and actually have folks in voting for the Greens and the Libertarians? I vote for
them every time. Sometimes I try to say I vote for the right person. This is what anytime anyone ever asks me, who did you vote for? I vote for the right person. Okay. I never can get the name out of me because I'm like, I vote for the person I believe is right. It doesn't matter whether they win or not. Right. I'm not going to say I voted for the winner. I would just tell everyone I voted for the right person. The end of the day, the political parties, this is so 18th century to me. You know, it just doesn't make sense. You know, one of you get to be king. Nah, we need to change. I love those two young men that were on our show the other day because they said that we needed to get to a political system that's not even one president.
No, I agree with that. I think that the president by committee might be a wonderful thing. They actually had a great idea in that concept. And I also agree with you. You know, this whole electoral college thing is crazy that we're going to, the popular vote doesn't even win, even though it's supposed to be one man, one vote. But if it's one man, one vote, how does an electoral college work? Seems like that defeats the whole purpose. How is it even
fair to the people in North Carolina? By the time the campaign gets it to us, nobody's worth voting for. Excuse me. The primaries have never been fair. You know, they start out with all these great, wonderful people. And so I think it needs to be one day for the primaries. They don't need to be traveling all over the place. They're all given the same budget to campaign with, and boom. All right. Then we get to find out who's really popular, right? Why is it that California gets to pick and New York get to pick who I get to pick at the end of the row? Are they better than North Carolina? No. Are they smarter than North Carolina? Maybe. They got better prejudice laws in their states. They're not as prejudiced in their states, but No, that's not to me, that's not the real voice. It's not.
No. And we got to have more of the real voice. I agree with you on that because a lot of times they're not giving us the real voice. And I think that there's got to be a better system. And like I said, the kids may have an idea and there's others that are floated ideas, but it's got to be something better than what we've had in terms of like, because oftentimes there might be some differences on certain issues. Like let's say the Democrats may be more about social issues and things of that nature. And the Republicans may be more about business and finances, but a lot of the things they are the same about, and they're not the same about the people. So there might be one or two things that they're different. Like one may be more concerned about social issues, whether that's abortion or things of those nature, and somebody else may be more concerned about fairness and equality. But definitely, they're not all doing the same thing in that respect. So I can see where there might be some differences, but there are too much similarities.
There is a passion that you have that's the same as a friend of mine, but it's the prisons, right? If you take a look at this, is it fair to some of these people to be putting them into a death sentence? Some people, not all of them. But because we know the prisons are heavily concentrated. I mean, what else do we do with them? But, are we taking all the precautions that necessary to make sure that the prisoners are staying safe? And so these are some of the things I don't know that people thought about. And we talked about this a little bit today. We had to do a knee-jerk reaction because we weren't prepared, right?
Yeah.
And I speak on being prepared a lot, but and I'll give you a quick example of what's so important about being prepared and the difference. But no, we got rid of our pandemic team, so definitely it was a knee-jerk reaction. What do you do? But you don't stop there at that point. Okay, great. This was the outcome of this knee-jerk reaction. So we have to do another knee-jerk reaction to fix it. And everybody doesn't want to do that because that's going to cause another, outcome that's not pleasing. But if you sit and wait too long, the original outcome that's not pleasing is going to get worse. So Unfortunately, that first knee-jerk reaction is going to have to be followed by another corrective knee-jerk reaction. You're going to have to do a few of those until you correct it. Unfortunately, and if you watch the flashbacks of the president's speeches, if you could go back to March 14th and 15th timeframe when he officially started putting us under lockdown, his speech to us was, well, I am doing this when we have 1,600 cases. So you listen very carefully to a couple of his, I think it's 1,600. I need to go back and find the exact speeches, but in most of his speeches, he will give an exact number. Each time it's always the same. I'm using 1,600 because for some reason that's what my brain clicked on when he was talking. And but I at least closed down when we had this many cases, right? So think about that. Why was that number so important to him? Why did he wait until that many cases? But here's the sad thing that he didn't realize because he wasn't listening to us.
Right.
They were looking at cases that the tests were results of 14 days ago. They were not looking at what existed that day, right? So that's where his big mistake was. So truly, on the day he was reading, there's 1,600 cases. Oh, crap, I better shut down now because that was my threshold. There were probably more like 16,000.
Oh, yeah.
That
easily.
Day. So, or 20, actually, if you want to be accurate. But people would argue with me. Now, people are arguing, is there really a coronavirus?
Oh, no, I've heard people say that because, some people, and I've said this before, and I've got some dear friends that are this way. If they don't see a victim in their life, then they don't think that it exists, meaning that they have to see, one, the victim that they know had coronavirus, and two, they need to see concrete proof from the doctors or whatever. And I'm sorry, I'm not one of those people. I don't need to see that a car is going 100 miles an hour, is heading to me, and it's like 2 seconds away from me to know that if it hits me, I'm probably gone. So I don't need to know that in order to know that it's real. So I don't have to be physically hit in order for it to be real to me, in order for me to actually just see the direction that it's heading in, know the speed it's going, to know that I need to step off to the side.
Right, exactly. And so I want you to take a look at something in the overall world population, because this is brought up very, very often. If you take a look at the world population, right, wow, we're over 7 billion people. That makes me hyperventilate sometimes. And you take a look at our public healthcare expenditure, the ratios of amount of money that we spend per person in the world, right? And then you go down to society and media. Nah, I'm not too interested in that. Money spent on video games. Check that out. Holy cow.
Wow.
But the one word that people bring up all the time is, well, more people die with the flu.
Yep.
Right? So here you go. Diseases, communicable diseases, which I think COVID is in the communicable disease factor. But if you go down, seasonal flu deaths, 184,000. Now, could some of the COVID-19 be really considered, could they have been the flu and then COVID-19? We don't know.
Right.
Because they tested positive. But what I will tell you, because I've heard many people tell me that they've been to the doctor this year for flu-like symptoms, and they tested negative for COVID and positive for flu. So, okay, so the doctor says, you just had the flu, go home and do this. Then the patients who tested positive for COVID and negative for flu. So there is a difference. There's a huge difference.
Yeah, I had some friends that have actually tested, didn't get tested, and therefore they don't know whether they had the COVID, but they were actually sick before COVID became a national thing in our society. Now, it was already in some of the foreign countries a long time before it got to here, but I have at least 3 friends, maybe 4, that are pretty much convinced that they had COVID. But then, like I said, they went through the process of just natural antibiotics and natural cures, bed rest, and all of that stuff. So they must have had, probably the milder version in terms of, but the way that they described the feelings they had, it wasn't all that mild. But I'm saying milder in the sense of the damage that it can do, and also what kind of conditions they had that would impact the COVID. So they had that going on. But like I said, I know of at least 3, maybe 4 people that have told me that they are pretty sure they had COVID, and that was as early as, I want to say, December, maybe January, or it might have even been November.
It was November. There was a huge flu that just took over the United States. It was a coughing flu. Mm-hmm. And seriously, you would almost consider it a COVID, like one of the older SARS or more, not that bad, but, right. But it was a very strong coughing flu that people stayed sick from pretty much Thanksgiving is when it hit. So from Thanksgiving until like January 3rd or 4th is when their coughing started to subside. And I know this because I know a lot of people who had it, including my own family. I did not get it. Whatever it was, it did not come to me at all. I was blessed. It might have been because I was going down to Miami a lot during that time. And maybe being in the heat and in the sun was a blessing. But the only way to know is to get tested, because there is a test that tests whether you've had it already or not. It comes in the dual cassette. I know all about the test kits now because I've been doing a lot of work with that part of the world. And I've learned a lot in the last few days. But will there be permanent damage? When you look at the autopsies that Michael Hansen did, if you just want to Google Michael Hansen and look at the autopsies, there is strong belief that COVID will create a permanent damage. And I'll show you an example. This is my favorite example. Actually, doctors love it when I do this. Hold on just a second.
Yep, she's going to pull out something.
I got to go down to my box because I haven't been in here to pull this one out in a while. So, yeah, I have a box of, little things that I like to show people. But you might know these, right? You recognize this?
Oh, that looks like is that a
sweet gum ball?
Yeah.
With the sharp spikes that if you're barefoot, it really hurt, right? So
yeah, they hurt big time.
Well, I got rid of them in my yard. It took years. I got rid of all of the trees, and it took me weeks to find these. But when the first time I saw what the corona looks like in the description, I was reading one of John Hopkins' white papers on it. It talked about how it had little spikes all over it, right? This little ball. And when it goes in, the spikes will land on your lungs and tear your lungs, and it will look like a honeycomb. It will look like your lungs will look like this.
Okay.
All right. So it's tearing at your lungs. So your lungs don't naturally heal.
No.
That kind of scarring. Mm-mm. No. So is there permanent damage?
Probably.
You think if your lungs got tore as tender as your lungs are?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's like people when they talk about and I know this is different than what we're talking about with COVID, but even when people live near smokers or live around smokers and they have that damage around smoking, even though they themselves are not smokers, because I know that there was a popular nightclub. It's since closed in Durham, and not because of anything to do with what I'm talking about, but it's just the person retired and the club eventually folded or something along that nature. But I remember going to that club all the time, and literally I lived in an apartment at that time that was upstairs, and I would have to wash my clothes as soon as I got in the building, because this was before the cigarette laws, because a lot of places now are more have tighter rules about smoking in a tight space. But at that time, they did not. And I remember just going there and literally, I was so glad that the washing machine was right by my door as soon as I opened the door, because I think I was almost peeling off stuff as soon as I walked in the door so I could throw it in the laundromat, because literally as soon as I left that particular nightclub, I'd be like, what's that? Oh, that's right. It's the cigarette smell.
Well, just think about COVID, right? It doesn't smell. You don't know. And
exactly.
My son said that they take all their outer clothing off in the first room that they enter the house, and they leave it there. You can sanitize. From what I'm told, if you can set your clothes or stuff in the sun will get rid of the COVID if there's COVID on it. So that's a good way to sanitize. But we're time out. And
I saw that. I saw we had run out of time. Kim did not make it, but I will reach out to him and see what happened, and a couple of other folks, and I'll get with Ankit and try to make sure that we have other guests other than just me and you. But I did enjoy the conversation. I thought it was a good first show and everything.
Yeah, first show. We decided to do it at the last minute, so you don't expect a lot. And this is better for us because we can work the kinks out, make sure everything runs smoothly for when you got a lot of people showing up. Because, given the guests that you're going to be having in the future, but make sure that they want to do a follow-up visit with you on radio show with Marc Lee, 2 p.m. Monday Eastern Standard Time. And I can play our ambassador for us. I'm not as good at doing this as Ankit does, but it could just remind us the sweet little things that we need to be learning to do as we move forward with reentry.
Yeah, definitely.
और ऐसे अपने खांसी जब आएगी तो ऐसे करेंगे अच्छू अच्छू और कोरोना वायरस को धन्यवाद हमारा म्यूजिक सुनने का.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. She's such a great ambassador. Y'all must tell me where y'all found her at, because she's just a wonderful ambassador and just does a great job, and definitely telling folks how they should be doing this time. We need more kids like that.
Well, we want to get more kids just doing it in different languages. She is from India, so you can only guess who she belongs to. So anyway,
okay.
We're signing off. We'll see you guys next week.
See you.